Well, joining me now live from his office in Parliament House is the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Prime Minister, thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
I'll talk to you about the Fadden result in a moment, but let's talk about this Newspoll on The Voice first of all. Just 41% support, 48% opposition. Is this thing dead in the water before the campaign even starts?
Not at all, Andrew. People will focus, and indeed today is the deadline for putting in the yes and the no cases. The yes campaign is a coherent argument that's been worked on by people from the Labor Party, from the Liberal Party, from the crossbenchers, who've all come together to endorse the yes wording that will go out to the population. We'll wait and see what the no campaign have done, given the very disparate views that are there in the no campaign, from Pauline Hanson to Lydia Thorpe to Peter Dutton to others. But the yes case is very strong. It's clear. And when people focus on the words that are actually in the referendum change and what the question will be about, which is about recognition and about listening in order to get better outcomes for Indigenous Australians, I'm confident that a majority of Australians in a majority of states will vote yes when it comes to the referendum in the last quarter of this year.
Well, there you go. There's your prediction. They're still going to vote yes, even though the poll says 41% support only, 48% opposition. You've been around politics a long time. It's pretty difficult to turn around those sorts of numbers, isn't it?
Well, Andrew, most Australians, of course, will focus when the referendum is actually being held. It's a while to go yet. What we know is that there's been a considerable no campaign already that is out there just trying to sow doubt. The yes campaign needs to be stronger in putting the case because we know that referendums in Australia have been difficult to pass, only 8 out of 48. But this is a clear and simple proposition for recognition and then listening in order to achieve better outcomes for Indigenous Australians. And I think Australians will ask themselves, is an 8-year life expectancy gap still acceptable? Is it acceptable that a young Indigenous male has more chance of going to jail than to university? Is the whole range of figures, re-educational, health outcomes, are they acceptable when only 4 out of the 19 closing the gap targets are being met? Well, if we keep doing things the same way, you can expect the same outcomes. And the other thing is that Australians will ask themselves is, are we getting value for money? Are we making sure that every dollar in Indigenous affairs is being used for the best purpose? Because we know that when Indigenous Australians have ownership, when they have that sense of belonging and engagement, you do get better outcomes with things like community health, with things like the Indigenous Rangers program, with justice reinvestment that's occurred in regional parts of New South Wales. So we need to do things better. We need to listen to people, because whenever you listen to people, you get better outcomes if you listen to those who are directly affected.
Well, those numbers started a fast downward trend the moment Peter Dutton announced the coalition's position on The Voice, didn't they? That's a huge stumbling block.
Well, the truth is that it is hard to win a referendum without bipartisan support, but that is a position that Peter Dutton has taken. He took before even the committee process had been established in the Parliament, that he said he wanted. The National Party didn't even bother to know what the question was before they said no. So that's just something that, of course, will have an impact, but there are people of goodwill like Julian Leeser and Richard Archer and so many others who are out there campaigning. Every state premier, of course, in the country, regardless of whether they're Labor or Conservative, have supported The Voice, and we'll continue to put the case every day in the lead up to the campaign at the referendum being held. But we know that this is something that has come from the bottom up, that Indigenous people have asked for themselves, and Indigenous Australians are campaigning strongly. I've had a look at the Yes case in the pamphlet that will go out. I think it's a very strong case.
What does it say?
Will read it. Australians now... well, it puts the case for why we need to do things better and differently. It puts the case how you get better outcomes. See, the voice is just the means to the end. The end is closing the gap, making a difference to the lives of Indigenous Australians. And it is a very strong and powerful case that is put forward that will be available from tomorrow. These yes and no cases are being submitted today, and I believe it will make a substantial difference.